Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again for another weekly update on news and information about DCS World. I'm your host, of course, Prickly Hedgehog, and as always, I hope this video finds you well wherever you are in the world and sitting in and tuning into this week's update, which is a goodie. We've got information about the Mariana Islands, there's some stuff about the Blackshark, and some housekeeping stuff which we'll talk about straight away here. And later on we'll talk about some stuff that is DCS World related but not covered by the newsletter, including some stuff that Juice and I were working on this week and the Air Warfare group and some other bits and bobs. So stick around, here we go. Let's start with the housekeeping stuff from Eagle Dynamics. Now they've had a little bit of a break here and there for May Day and Victory in Europe days in Europe, of course, and that probably means or probably explains why we didn't at least get a patch this week. But they are back at full power, apparently, and they are working on bug fixing for the eventual delivery of the stable version of DCS World 2.7. Of course, the 2.7 goodies that we've been wowing everybody with over the last few weeks have, of course, been implemented in open beta, but not in the stable version. So those of you that run the stable version, your time is coming. Don't fret. The goodies are coming, and they will be worth waiting for. So I do hope you get to experience that sooner rather than later, because the game is completely different under clouds. A big improvement in frame rates in a lot of cases, improvements to the Syria map and stuff like that. Things are looking really good. It's a really awesome time to be a sim pilot right now with just the eye candy that we have alone. It's just been fun cloud surfing and, you know, doing things in the game that require a little bit more conscious thought, if you like, because of clouds. Some considerations, flying in close formation or parade formation as you go into cloud, just to maintain visual on your partners, wingmen and women. That kind of stuff just adds this extra level of, you know, immersion and realism in the game, which is what we're all about here. So it's nicely done. Thanks, Eagle Dynamics. Now, moving on to, they have said here that looks like, I guess, that they've added some more people by expanding their dedicated avionics division. And those people are tasked with accelerating the capabilities and speed of the avionics development. And I would imagine this is a fairly complex and involved process in a lot of their jets, because a lot of these aircraft that we have, these modern ones like the F-16 and of course the F-18, which was one we're about to talk about, these are, you know, complex aircraft, sophisticated aircraft with complex avionics systems, and to recreate those systems takes a bit of work, I think. So any injection of resources into that area, I think, is a good thing for us all. Now, as I mentioned, the F-18 is about to get a big update later this month here in May, so those features have already been talked about to a greater or lesser degree in some sense by WAGs. We saw it with the AGM-84H SLAM ER. There is the raid single target track mode and the one look raid mode. They're going to add here to the F-18 new smaller flares, offset aim points, again another video was done on that, and excuse me, updated HOTAS functions, which is really cool. They've also fixed air-to-air and air-to-ground radar issues as well, and the at-flare and lightning targeting pod bugs, that was a bit of a mouthful there, pod bugs, targeting pod bugs have been fixed, as well as the bug in couple autopilot mode. All right, apologies there. So good news, of course, and all the work that gets done on the F-18 and stuff that gets completed, at some point those resources can also be freed up for more work on the Viper, which is progressing, and I know a lot of you are looking for, you know, more work to be done on that aircraft, because it's a popular one, it's a good aircraft, it's fun to fly, but yeah, really nice. Both of those aircraft are nice additions to the game. And speaking of the Hornet, actually, just a little segue here, I posted in the community part of the YouTube channel here a little article from Stormberg's blog about whether or not the F-18 is the best module to start with for a full fidelity module. And a lot of you were in agreement. Not everybody agreed for good reasons. Some people sort of suggested that it's a little bit much in terms of the avionics and things that you have to learn, and that a more unfettered, if you like, cockpit is more desirable and more raw and more perhaps realistic in terms of the flying experience, because you don't have that fly-by-wire thing, so you're more engaged with the mechanics of the aircraft, which are valid points. But I didn't hear anyone slam the F-18 as a noob missile, so to speak, which you do see from time to time. It is a pretty well represented aircraft in online play, and I think in part because of the ease of which it is to fly, but also how capable it is as a multi-role aircraft, which doesn't limit people to, say, ground pounding work that you would typically do in, say, the Warthog. So a multi-role aircraft is going to be beneficial for a lot of people who are looking for more bang for their buck, and I think that makes sense that you would consider it that way. And I think it is a nice aircraft. They've done a nice job with it. It's fun to fly. It's easy to fly. It's good in dogfights. There's no AOE limiter or anything like that. It can certainly be dangerous if you're not paying attention, and it moves nicely. But it's an aircraft that has some really interesting features to it because of that pointy nose, its relative ease of use, and again that multi-role capability. So good stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are on that, either in the comments below, or let me know what your first aircraft was, or your first purchase. I know that Juice said the Hornet was his first full fidelity module after flying the F-15 for a while. So there's lots of pros and cons, I guess, but there's more pros than there are cons with that particular aircraft. So again, let me know what your thoughts are on that. And another piece of good news here, and that is the Mariana Islands map is going to be released in open beta soon. Eagle Dynamics has been teasing us quite some time now with images from this map. We haven't seen any videos yet of WAGs whizzing around, showcasing the various features of the islands or anything like that, or doing any kind of training videos with it, as far as I know. He has done some stuff with Syria, and he spent quite a lot of time, flying the Hind around in Syria and showcasing that. So I think once we see something like that from Eagle Dynamics, it's probably close to being released, so stay tuned. But this is going to be a good map. It's an interesting theater. It's a little bit different from some of the other maps that we have, because it's an archipelago. So rather than a single large land mass or an inland map like some of our others, and it's a free map. So again, it's going to provide some interesting training opportunities, some theaters of war for multiplayer, and it's going to be fun to fly around in just because of that. So looking forward to seeing what they have going on there, and stay tuned for more of that. Like I said, once you see an Eagle Dynamics video with WAGs whizzing around over the theater somewhere, we're probably getting pretty close to a release. Right, well, let's talk lastly here about the Blackshark 3 as part of this week's newsletter. And they want to share their progress on the Ka-50 Blackshark 3. Now, this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but bear in mind that the stuff that we see in here is all going to bode well for other helicopters in the game, like the Hind, of course, which should be close to being released, hopefully, this quarter, and of course the Apache later as well. So they are showing here images of the 2A42 30mm cannon. That model is undergoing a substantial update, and when completed will boast a new algorithm, soundscape, and enhanced animations, which is cool. And they look forward to sharing more information with us about that soon, so stay tuned. There's two new pylons, for air-to-air missiles that have been added to the wingtips, and this brings the total number of hardpoints to 6, as mentioned last week as well. Now, we talked about avionics. The Abris here, they're currently finalizing development of the Abris missile warning system, and as seen in this image, 2 missiles are detected. The closer threat is considered the dangerous one, and that's been marked with a flashing circle, which is not animated, unfortunately, here, but you get the drift. So that's a pretty cool feature, and obviously, again, these developments are good news for the game in general. So, all right, let's wrap up this week's newsletter, at least, with reference to the Virpil Controls hardware that's coming. Right now, I believe it's able to be purchased as part of a pre-order. They've got 2 collective bases right now, known as the Rotor TCS and the Rotor TCS Plus. The Plus version looks like it has a throttle twist grip thing on it, which looks really realistic, and the pictures alone appear to show pretty good quality instruments. Some of the features, if we look at the various buttons here, we've got 2 8-way hats plus a push. There's 1 2-way switch plus a push. There's 3 3-way toggles for on, off, and on, and there's also 3 push buttons. So it's going to be a handy device in more ways than one. Certainly if you're really into helicopters, this will be a must-have, I would think. I know that there are other collectives out there, but this is going to be particularly handy for the Blackshark 3, and of course it will double up with other aircraft like the Hind that's coming naturally, and much later in the year the Apache. So let me know your thoughts on that. Again, the quality of this looks really, really good, but again, it's hard to tell from pictures alone, and I kind of want one. My wife will have a fit, of course, because then there'll be another piece of equipment that's protruding from my desk or chair to reinforce my nerdiness. But you know, there are other hobbies that I could be doing that are much, much worse, that take me outdoors and are dangerous. I don't own a motorcycle. I wish I had a sports car. I probably would be involved in that shenanigan if I was allowed. So you know, it's a safe hobby. It's not cheap, but it's not breaking the bank. I don't have to pay insurance on any of this stuff, and I'm not going to kill myself using a collective. So I will get speeding tickets or anything like that. So, you know, there are worse hobbies, right? Anyway, let me know your thoughts on that. And I'm impressed with what I'm seeing here visually. It's going to be interesting to know how it functions, as part of the game, and how it interacts with the software. So, yeah, give me your thoughts below. Well, as I said earlier, we'll wrap up this week's newsletter here with some other stuff. Razbam, I was given somebody sent me a link to a picture of the F-15E cockpit, which seems to be coming along. I wasn't able to find any further information. Apparently it was a Reddit post of some kind, so thanks for the link there. Razbam did produce a little tiny video showing an aircraft bombing the runway in one of the Falklands runways that they have produced. Showcased a couple of pictures there from the work that they've been doing on that map, which I'm also really excited about. It's going to be a really good addition to the game, a sort of interesting counterbalance, if you like, to the Marianas. Obviously it's a different part of the world. It's very cold down there, sort of closer to the Southern Ocean, off the coast of Argentina. So yeah, interesting work being done there. There was a podcast, I haven't had a chance to listen to that, from Air Combat Sim, who were talking to a couple of the developers that are working on that from Razbam, and it's looking pretty impressive within the constraints of the materials that they're working with. The map, I think, again, it's going to be a really exciting training theater, especially for carrier operations. Obviously, it's a very, very large area that they've created. It's going to present some interesting challenges. And again, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but thinking of low cloud over the Falklands, and trying to do carrier operations, bombing runs into the islands, or carrier versus carrier type situations. There's really quite a lot of scope for interesting combat operations down there, or training operations too. So, and if it's pretty, like they've demonstrated, especially under the new clouds and lighting implementation that we have, then it's going to be a fun place to fly, even without all of that pew-pew stuff. So, as I mentioned, and as you probably saw, Juice and I did some Sinatra training with tail chase exercise earlier this week. Juice put up the video, so I may put up a video of my perspective of that, or you may be watching that right now. So stay tuned for more information about that. We're going to continue doing work together. We've had a lot of fun. We also saw some other videos from Air Warfare Group this week. Juice did another Hawk video on the startup procedure from Cold on that wonderful little aircraft. Remember, it's free. It's available for download. So I'll put in a link there, if I remember, to that video too. And of course, Tyro did some stuff also with the Air Warfare Group on a couple of terms with regards to IFF, and also fence-in checks, the acronym there. And I believe somebody else did a video on that this week too. I think Tricker, was it? Did a fenced-in video, and I think Tyro's came in a few days earlier. But yeah, really some really useful stuff there in terms of procedure if you're wanting to avoid that situation when you're rolling into target and you haven't properly set up your aircraft properly. For example, even just the simple one of not having your master arm on, then your mission run becomes problematic. Obviously, the converse is true also. Once you're leaving the target area, you want to be fenced out to make sure that you're not still running a hot jet, that kind of stuff. So lots of procedural things with this game that you can mimic from the real world environment, which is kind of fun to do, and have that flexibility and have that kind of realism feeling, which is really cool on group missions that we've been doing in Air Warfare Group, for example, and it keeps you on your toes and it adds an extra layer of depth to this whole game, which is really neat stuff. So, well, long video this week, of course, but as I said, no patch, but those things are coming. We've got a lot to look forward to this year, and I'm really excited about the direction in which the game is headed. And I know last year, and this kind of inspired me a little bit, I was thinking of doing an update video because there were quite a few videos last year on the direction of what's the future of DCS world, and I kind of feel like we're in this middle ground right now where we're actually seeing what the future of DCS world is right now. Barring a few things like a dynamic campaign, the game is in a really good place, and the introduction of, like I said, this clouds and lighting and the weather effects that we're also going to get has really just pushed the game so much further than what it was before, just from a realism point of view and an immersion factor. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I just feel the game is so much fun to fly right now. I mean, it brings a smile to my face just thinking about some of the things that I've been able to do over the last few weeks with these new clouds, the increased enjoyment I've had in flying, the increased challenge, certainly even in flying in formation when you're in cloud. That visual aspect is it's such a weird thing. It sounds like such a simple thing. It seems like a small thing. It's not, because Evil Dynamics has been working on this for a while. But the improvement in the immersive nature of the game now is well beyond what I expected. And, I think things like VR, which is getting some attention, and really a lot of people are hugely impressed with VR, even with the idiosyncrasies that it has right now. And you probably saw Cap from Grim Reapers sitting there playing with VR for the first time in the game, and he also had he was lucky to have one of those invites where there was also a one of those things that moves the seat around as well to give you that illusion of moving. The degree of immersion that those pieces of technology are able to provide to the game, even these Virpil Controls, for example, which, like I said, I'm really excited about, gives us this really neat experience. And sim gaming right now and sim flying is well beyond what any of us older guys particularly have ever experienced. And for those of us like myself and Juice, and I mentioned Tyro before, that have been around for a little bit longer than some of you young guys, I mean, there was a time where things were so 2D, so simplistic, that you could never have imagined in the late 80s, mid 80s, right up until the mid 90s, that you would ever have a game like this that's this realistic, and with these kinds of periphery pieces of equipment that you can buy to enhance that. I mean, that was the stuff of sort of airline pilot stuff, where you had these huge machines, which obviously they still have, but now you can recreate some of that, in a much more or much less expensive version, to enjoy a kind of experience that once upon a time was very few people could afford to do that or had the opportunity to do that. And I think it's an exciting time to be in flight sim right now, or in the flight sim world. So, all right, we'll leave it at that. I just want to thank you again for watching the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts and comments on any of these topics. I really appreciate all the feedback. Sometimes we don't agree on everything, but that's healthy, and I appreciate the discussion and the willingness of people to be relatively civil when we disagree. So give me your thoughts on, things going on in DCS world right now, and where you see things, and what you're looking forward to. And as I said, any of the other topics that we've discussed this week. Take care, everybody. This is Prickly Hedgehog out. We'll see you next time, and carry on flying.
Oh, I'll see you soon. 4 seconds.
1, 2, 3, 4.